Anita barely slept the night before. Not because she didn't want to, but because every time she closed her eyes, she saw Kelvin's face in the rain, his lips against hers, his hands tracing her back. Now, as the morning sun filled her room, she stood at the balcony, eyes fixed on the gate. She knew Chief Douglas would be back today, but she didn't know exactly when. Her stomach tightened. Mama Keji's voice broke her thoughts. "Madam, the driver just called. They are almost here." Anita froze. "So soon?" "Yes, madam." "You don't look excited. Aren't you glad your husband is coming back?" Anita forced a small smile. "Of course I am." But deep inside, her chest felt heavy. 10 minutes later, the black Mercedes SUV rolled into the compound. Kelvin was already at the gate, standing straight, his uniform neat, saluting as Chief Douglas's car passed. The house came alive in an instant. The staff hurried to open doors, straighten furniture, and prepare refreshments. The sound of footsteps and quick movements filled the air. Anita stood at the entrance, her hands clasped in front of her. She wore a calm smile, but her heart was thumping loudly in her chest. Douglas stepped out of the black SUV, adjusting his agbada with slow, deliberate movements. Behind him, Kelvin carried his suitcase through the compound. Anita's eyes found him. And lingered. Too long. Something inside her stirred, not just admiration, but a pull she could no longer deny. Her gaze traced the line of his shoulders, the way he moved as if every step was calculated. Douglas noticed. He didn't speak, but something inside him shifted. A man may not have evidence, but he knows when his woman's heart is no longer fully his. He can feel it. And he can sense when her attention is being drawn to someone else. Especially when that someone walks at the gate. The next day, they sat at the long marble dining table for lunch. The house was quiet, the clinking of cutlery echoing in the space. Anita barely touched her food. She sat with her chin resting on her palm, her eyes drifting toward the garden outside the large glass windows. Kelvin was there. His shirt clung slightly to his back, damp from the heat, as he adjusted the security cameras. He worked with quiet focus, occasionally glancing around the compound. Anita's lips parted slightly. She imagined how warm his skin must feel under her fingertips, the deep tone of his voice when he said her name, the steady calmness in his presence. Then suddenly, "You're quiet today," Douglas said. Her mind snapped back to the present. She straightened in her chair, blinking rapidly. "Sorry. I was just thinking." "About what?" he asked, his gaze fixed on her. She gave a small, practiced smile. "Nothing serious." Douglas held her eyes for a moment longer before nodding slowly. But in that moment, he knew. It wasn't the look of a woman distracted by thoughts of work or chores. It was the look of a woman imagining another man. 2 evenings later, Anita sat with Douglas in the living room. The television played a political news segment, but she wasn't paying attention. Her gaze slid toward the window. Kelvin was walking toward the main gate, his steps firm, his shoulders broad under the fading sunlight. Even from a distance, there was something magnetic about the way he moved, confident, controlled, almost too perfect for someone in his position. Her chest tightened, and she didn't even realize she had been staring until Douglas's voice broke the moment. "What's so interesting out there?" he asked, his tone cool. Anita blinked and turned her head quickly. "Nothing. I was just thinking." Douglas leaned back, picked up a cigar from the table, and lit it slowly. He didn't speak again. But the quiet between them felt heavier than words. That night, Douglas said nothing to her. No questions. No small talk. No familiar touch before bed. He lay down beside her, facing the other side of the bed, and turned off the light. Anita stared at the ceiling, her thoughts restless. Her body was beside her husband, but her mind was elsewhere. Her heart was elsewhere. Kelvin's name echoed silently in her chest. She remembered the way his hands had felt when he once brushed against her skin, the way his voice seemed to reach into her and calm her fears. She turned to look at Douglas's back, wondering if he already knew, or if he was trying to figure it out. Sleep never came. The next morning, the tension lingered. Breakfast was unusually quiet. Douglas stirred his tea slowly, his eyes fixed on the table. "You don't look happy," he said at last. "I'm just tired," Anita replied, trying to keep her voice even. "You used to laugh more. Now you barely smile." "I told you I'm fine," she said more firmly this time. Douglas leaned back in his chair, his eyes narrowing slightly. He didn't push further. Just then, Kelvin walked into the dining room to deliver a package for Chief. Anita's eyes flickered toward him, just for a second. But Douglas saw it. The sound of his spoon hitting the table made her flinch. He stood up slowly, pushed his plate aside, and walked away without saying a word. The silence he left behind was louder than any accusation. That afternoon, Douglas called the house manager to his private study. "I want all the CCTV footage from this past week," he said calmly. "Every single clip." The manager hesitated. "For security reasons, sir." Douglas's lips curved into a faint, cold smile. "Yes. Security." But his mind wasn't on break-ins or faulty cameras. He wanted to see moments. Subtle glances. A lingering touch. A smile that lasted a little too long. He needed to know if his instincts were right. Because a man's pride can only ignore so much. And in his gut, he already knew what he didn't want to believe. His young, beautiful wife was falling for the one man she had no business wanting. And if he found proof, someone was going to pay the price. Chief Douglas sat alone in his study, the glow of the large monitor lighting his stern face. One by one, the CCTV clips played out. Anita, standing on the balcony, her eyes fixed on Kelvin like she was lost in a daydream. Kelvin, lingering too close at the garden gate, their fingers brushing in a way no one could mistake for accidental. And then, the late-night footage. Kelvin entering her bedroom, the door closing softly behind him. Douglas's jaw tightened. His grip on the armrest grew so hard his knuckles turned white. By the time the final clip faded to black, his chest was rising and falling heavily. This wasn't just betrayal. This was humiliation. And it wasn't from a powerful rival or a man of equal status. It was from a nobody. A man who stood at the gate he owned. The compound was unusually quiet that afternoon. The air felt heavy, like it knew a storm was about to break. Then the silence shattered. "Kelvin!" Douglas's voice roared across the compound like a thunderclap. Kelvin, who was carrying a small package toward the garage, froze mid-step. His head snapped up. "Come here." Douglas's voice boomed again, fist clenched, eyes burning. The staff stopped what they were doing, peeking from corners. From the staircase, Anita stood frozen, her heart pounding so hard she could hear it in her ears. She knew that look in her husband's eyes. She had seen it before when he was about to destroy someone. Kelvin didn't know. But when their eyes met, she gave the slightest shake of her head. A silent, desperate plea. "Run!" Kelvin's fingers tightened around the package. Then, without a word, he dropped it and turned, running toward the back gate. Douglas charged forward, shouting after him. "You think you can touch my wife and walk away? You'll pay for this." Anita turned her face away, tears already spilling down her cheeks. That night, Douglas entered their bedroom like a storm in human form. His presence filled the space with rage. "You chose a Gateman over me." He spat, his voice low but trembling with fury. Anita lifted her chin. "I chose someone who saw me." His eyes darkened. You embarrassed me before the world. You won't do it again." Without another word, he stormed out and slammed the door, locking it from the outside. Anita rushed forward, banging her fist against the wood. "Douglas! Open the door. You can't do this to me." But the sound of his footsteps faded. For 2 days, she was trapped in that room. No food. No phone. No sunlight. Only the echo of her own thoughts, the sting of her tears, and the memory of Kelvin's steady eyes. On the morning of the 3rd day, Anita heard a soft knock on the door. "Madam, it's me." "He's gone to work," came the gentle voice of Mama Keji. The key turned slowly, and the door creaked open. Anita stumbled forward, falling into the old woman's arms. Her voice cracked. "Thank you. I thought I'd never get out." Mama Keji held her tightly. "You don't belong in a cage, my dear. Go. Before it's too late." With nothing but the clothes she wore and a small bag in hand, Anita slipped out of the mansion's back gate, her heart hammering with fear and relief. At a public phone booth by the roadside, she dialed the only number she could remember by heart. "Kelvin, it's me. I escaped. Where are you?" "I'll meet you at the old bridge," his voice came, steady but urgent. When they saw each other, neither spoke. Kelvin's arms went around her, pulling her close, holding her as if the world could fall apart around them and it wouldn't matter. For the first time in days, Anita felt like she could breathe again. By the next day, the internet had caught fire. Billionaire's wife runs away with Gateman. Anita Douglas spotted escaping mansion, staff reveal secret affair. Photos. CCTV stills. Even voice notes claiming to be from sources inside the mansion. Some people called her shameless. Others called her brave. Hashtags with her name trended for hours. Douglas tried to bury the story, paying off blogs, forcing pages to delete posts, but the damage was irreversible. Everywhere he went, whispers followed. And for Anita, the world had already picked sides. Anita and Kelvin vanished from the city like smoke carried by the wind. They found a small, quiet village near a wide, slow-moving river. The air smelled of wet earth and fresh leaves. Their new home was nothing like the mansion she had left. No marble floors. No chandeliers. No drivers waiting outside. But there were no locked doors either. No cameras watching her every move. No cold silences at the dining table. Kelvin worked at a local farm, his hands rough from labor but warm when they touched hers. Anita began sewing clothes, her fingers moving quickly over bright fabrics she sold at the market. They cooked together, shared laughter under the moonlight, and danced barefoot when the rain came. At night, Anita would lay her head on Kelvin's chest, listening to the steady beat of his heart. She had nothing the world would call wealth. But for the first time in her life, she had peace. She had freedom. And she had love, the kind she knew no amount of gold could buy. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss out on more amazing stories.